Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it is my end of regular season mock draft where we got all the non-playoff teams figured out. The only thing is figuring out who's picking where when it comes to the playoff teams, but we're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff here. Coaches are starting to get fired and hired and everywhere, and there's a lot going on. With all the little bits and pieces that will be moving along, I'm actually going to be starting an off-season prediction video where I'm just going to sort of do what I would do, I guess, if I was the general manager of a team when it comes to hiring and firing a coach, who I bring back that's an impending free agent, who I sign in free agency, and who I would pick up in the draft, which you're going to get a little insight into all the teams here in this video so far. As of this video, Bill Belichick is not the coach. Gerard Mayo is in New England, but they don't have a replacement. Bill Belichick doesn't have a signed team yet. And I think that there's now 6 open coaching spots, including the Seattle Seahawks with Pete Carroll, which does make things a little interesting when it comes to quarterbacks. But I think that the way it's going to work out, unfortunately, I don't feel Antonio Pierce is looking like he's going to be the coach of the Raiders. I think that's Jim Harbaugh's job to lose at this point. They're just going through the whole Rooney Rule rigmarole to eventually get around to that. I do expect Bill Belichick to end up in either with the Chargers, or I think there's an outside chance the Atlanta Falcons go after him and bring him in as sort of a way to get that defense going and allow them the offensive weapons, because they do have a lot of talent there. Maybe he brings in a veteran quarterback. I think he does go somewhere where there's already a quarterback established, or he's bringing in, I would say, Kirk Cousins if he's not returning to Minnesota, which I don't expect he will. But let's get into all the picks here. And let's go. Like, comment, subscribe. So as always, we go 8x8, and there's a big run in the top picks here of offensive players. This is a really good draft for if you're looking for an offensive player, whether it be an offensive tackle, a receiver, or even a quarterback. And the first 3 picks are quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, number 1. I know there's rumors he doesn't want to be there, but I think that'll all get sorted out. Drake May going to Washington. I'm expecting Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, to be the head coach here. Sort of reset the culture a bit, get an offensive mind in there and keep an offensive mind there. And I think Drake May, sort of pivoting from North Carolina quarterback Sam Howell to Drake May, I think is going to be advantageous. Drake May is better than Sam Howell. So, I mean, kind of like the situation with Caleb Williams and Justin Fields. I think at worst case scenario, their rookie years, they're going to play the same way. You just had a quarterback who needs to be re-signed soon. So why put yourself in that position when you're the top 2 pick? Just take a new quarterback, get rid of the one that you have, try to get some draft capital for him, and then build around this new guy. You got 4 years to figure out if he's the guy, and I think that that's a good way to sort of set the clock back a little bit. Patriots with Gerard Mayo, the new head coach. I got him picking Jaden Daniels. Now, I know this might seem a little high for some people for Jaden Daniels. People are talking about how people are assessing him as being like a bottom of the first round type of range. But I think that teams are going to be really aggressive getting their quarterbacks this year. And I think New England getting Jaden Daniels is a way of establishing a new culture in New England. It is bringing them up to modern times, because Jaden Daniels is very much a more modern style quarterback. He's got the ability to run. He can throw, but his real weapon is his athleticism. And I think bringing him into New England, I think that's Gerard Mayo's way of saying, Bill Belichick's not the guy anymore. I think there's going to be a lot of elements of that sort of the Patriot way. I think is always sort of going to be there, especially because Gerard Mayo as a pro has only ever known that. But I think bringing the game up to speed, getting Jaden Daniels in as the quarterback, and then sort of building around him with little pieces here and there. I think that Wes Welker has a real opportunity to be the offensive coordinator here. I think that there could be a lot of that going on with the New England coaching staff. I don't expect Bill O'Brien to stick around, basically is what I'm saying. The 4th pick, I think Arizona, super easy. Marvin Harrison Jr. sort of just falls into their lap. They'll be ecstatic with this pick. They really are hoping that the Bears stay at number 1 and take a quarterback, because if they trade back even 1 or 2 spots and stay in front of Arizona. I think if they trade back, it's because they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. instead. So this is a really, really good situation for Arizona. Another receiver goes off the board 2 picks later to the New York Giants, Malik Neighbors. This guy's going to come in. He's going to be the Stephon Diggs of this offense. Then you pair him up with Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson in particular really came along at the end of the season. He looks like he's going to be really legit, really fun to watch. Jalen Hyatt started to add a bunch of routes to his route tree there also towards the end of the year. So I think Malik Neighbors really completes that wide receiver room, and he's a true number 1 because he can really do everything, while Wan'Dale and Jalen Hyatt are more skill specific. And then another wide receiver, 2 picks after that, Rome Odunze to Atlanta. Talked about a little in the intro. I feel like Atlanta is in a position where they can just really insert a veteran quarterback. They have the cap space to do it. And either it be Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. I think if this job in Atlanta goes to Bill Belichick, then that quarterback is going to be Kirk Cousins. If, of course, he doesn't re-sign in Minnesota, but I don't think that he is. If this becomes somebody like, I don't know, Mike Vrabel, then I think a veteran gets sort of put in there as well. I don't think he's going to be it's a tough situation for Atlanta because I feel like taking a quarterback here is going to be a reach. Maybe they trade up with Chicago, and then we get that situation where they take Killers, and then Chicago sits there and they take Rome Odunze. But Atlanta's one of those weird teams now. I think that they could really throw the draft completely off. Kind of like they did last year with Bijan. So there is that X factor in this top 10. Then we got the Chargers and the Titans going offensive tackle with both their picks. Joe Alt to the Chargers. I feel like if that's Harbaugh or if it's Belichick, taking the best offensive tackle on the board, I think would be in their best interest. Put him opposite Rashawn Slater and really help out Justin Herbert. I think that'll all be the ultimate goal of whatever coach ends up in Los Angeles with the Chargers. And then the Titans, they kind of already have their quarterback in place with Will Levis. He was basically a first-round pick. First pick of the second pick of the second round last year. So getting another offensive lineman in there, Pierre Skoronski really worked out as but he can play that guard position, and Olu Fashanu can play right next to him, and help shore up that line. Don't know if Derrick Henry's going to be back. So again, who's going to be the coach in Tennessee that's going to try to rectify that situation? I don't know that Derrick Henry sticks around with the new head coach. So if wherever Vrabel ends up, maybe Derrick Henry follows him. You see another run here of quarterbacks, and this is where I'm playing my Jim Harbaugh is going to the Raiders card, because you can see J.J. McCarthy there at 13. The only way McCarthy goes this high is if Jim Harbaugh is the coach of the Raiders. If he's not the coach of a team that needs a quarterback, I think J.J. McCarthy at best is somebody who goes at the end of the first round, but probably will be a second-round pick. The desperation of the Denver Broncos, who are going to need a quarterback now, they just grab Bo Nix because Michael Penix goes the pick before that. So we got Minnesota and Denver, who really set the tone here for teams that need quarterbacks, who are moving on from veterans. So their pick is going to be a quarterback. You can almost guarantee it at this point, especially Denver, who doesn't have a second-round pick. Then we see a run on edge there. Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Liatu Latu. This is Liatu Latu's floor. I've played around with Liatu Latu's ceiling, which I think would be like a top 5 pick, depending on how movement happens with teams trading up and trading back. Jared Verse, I think, just fits the Colts a little bit better. Liatu Latu, I think, with Seattle. I really do think Dan Quinn has a real shot of being the coach there, and I think if he does, Liatu Latu really does fit, and he sort of would go in and be like what Micah Parsons is in Dan Quinn's Dallas defense. And speaking of Dallas Turner going to the Saints, who are going to need to, like every year, play some salary cap magic and it could result in them needing a new edge rusher. Cam Jordan, could it be the end of the line? Maybe. Brock Bowers finds his way into the top 10 with the Jets. It'll just be the best weapon on the board for the Jets when they draft. And Brock Bowers, pretty obvious for them. I think Aaron Rodgers would love to have that guy on his team. And then the Bears with their second first-round pick. I got them going Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback. What's happening with Jalen Johnson? Jalen Johnson's going to make a lot of money in the offseason, whether it's with the Bears or whether it's with somebody else. And I just don't know. I really just don't know if the Bears are going to retain him. So I think getting Kool-Aid McKinstry, Tyreek Stevenson had some pretty good moments there. But even if you do retain Jalen Johnson, maybe Kyler Gordon becomes a safety with Jaquan Brisker. And Eddie Jackson is a big contract that you could, a veteran that you can part ways with. I think that there's some movement around there as well for the Bears. But I think them getting a defensive player and an offensive player with these two picks they have in the top 10, I think is pretty essential for them and would be a home run draft for them. So in our next 8 picks, we get it bookended by our first interior players being picked up. Johnny Newton, Jerzon Newton, interior defensive lineman, Illinois, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he fills an immediate 3-down need for them. Helps out with that pass rush. And then we got Graham Barton going there. He's going to be a guard in the NFL out of Duke, going to the Miami Dolphins. Austin Jackson, you talk about having patience with offensive linemen. Austin Jackson, I think, really proved that this year. He really came on, ended up earning himself a contract extension, played really well. And now you get Graham Barton who can come in, play guard. You got a couple of guys who have on your interior offensive line that are coming up in their contracts. So even if you retain just one of them, you can Graham Barton come in, start on the other side. And you hope you can retain Connor Williams at center as well. We get some more offensive tackles off the board. J.C. Latham, Alabama, kind of takes a tumble a bit here, but he's sort of like Liatu Latu for me. He's got a weird range of where he can go. He's got a pretty high floor. I think he's got a pretty low floor and a pretty high ceiling. He goes to the Bengals, and then Armarius Mims goes to the Green Bay Packers. Even though they have some pretty good tackle play right now, Rasheed Walker really came along. I think that just getting the best 5 guys on the field for Green Bay is better for them moving forward. I mean, because John Running's a free agent. Maybe Zach Tom, who's a great right tackle, can kick in and play the guard position now, and then Armarius Mims can play that tackle spot. I think you got enough versatile guys on the offensive line right now where you can, I think, mix and match in a really cool way to come up with a really good starting 5. We get some DBs off the board there. Nate Wiggins going to Arizona. Sort of the same idea that I had with Chicago, I have with Arizona. Get a top offensive weapon and then just take the best defensive player on the board. I think Nate Wiggins coming in, he comes corner 1 almost right away. Cooper DeJean going to the Rams. I have him as a DB because he's kind of a safety, kind of a corner. I think either way, he comes in and the Rams could really use him and help out in that defense in the passing game. Then we get another defensive player, Chop Robinson, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are really overachieving right now. But I think just adding some pass rush here will really, really, really help them out. They haven't really been able to find a really great pass rusher opposite Shaq Barrett, and I think Shaq Barrett could be on his way out also. Yaya Diaby played halfway decent this year. You hope Kalijah Kancey can kick in and be, quote, Aaron Donald, which, yikes about that. And then I have the Pittsburgh Steelers going Keon Coleman. I've really been locked in that I feel like this is going to be what they do in this draft, is take a wide receiver, particularly Keon Coleman, because I just don't see Deontay Johnson, George Pickens sticking around. At least not both of them. I feel like George Pickens is probably the odd one out there. Just the attitude problems, and it's kind of killing the Pittsburgh Steelers culture a bit. And so I think you bring in Keon Coleman. and help out with that passing game and, help Kenny Pickett out. And coming through the last 8, we got 3 more offensive tackles coming off the board. It is an offensive line heavy draft here. So many good ones. Start with Talisi Fuaga going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Their offensive line has been incredibly inconsistent, not really good at times. Got to get somebody in there that can be an immediate upgrade. I think Fuaga is that guy. Going down to the Dallas Cowboys, Troy Fautanu. I think they would love it if Graham Barton fell this far. But I think you put in Troy Fautanu and then Tyler Smith. Him and Tyler Smith play that left side of the offensive line. Jordan Morgan comes in. He's your right tackle moving forward. We get some cornerbacks coming off the board here. We've got Kamari Laster, Georgia corner, going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, it's a Georgia defensive player. And they need that help in that position group. They really fell off a cliff there with Bradbury and Darius Slay. I got Terry and Arnold going to the Houston Texans. Get somebody opposite Derek Stingley. You got some veterans coming up with their contracts there as well. Quinion Mitchell, who is sort of sneaking into the first round here for the Baltimore Ravens. It was really the only guy I could think of where I was like, okay, yeah, this could be the pick for them. If they stick around at this spot, I don't know that it would be necessarily they need to go running back in the first round. I don't think there will be one, and there isn't one for this mock draft. And then we got safety Tyler Nubin going to the Buffalo Bills. Full disclosure, that was Emeka Ibuka. It was before, thank God that I didn't record this before he declared that he was going to be returning to Ohio State, which makes a lot of sense because he started the year as like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 at worst, and then kind of fell out of favor and wasn't looking like he was going to be a first round pick at all. So just for his future, going back to school is actually a really good idea for him. He'll probably end up being a top 20 pick in the next year's draft. If all goes well at Ohio State, he's not sort of living in the shadow of Marvin Harrison Jr. And then a second LSU wide receiver goes to the Detroit Lions, Brian Thomas Jr. He's gotten a lot of love the last month and a half. It looks like he's going to be somebody who can now get into that first round as well. Talking about overshadowing Emeka Ibuka, he's definitely been one of them. And I think pairing him up with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you got Jameson Williams there, I think that's going to be a really, really good group. Especially because, you're probably going to be losing a couple veteran wide receivers like Josh Reynolds is probably going to be going elsewhere. And it's have these types of guys keep coming in, helping Jared Goff, helping this offense stay modern. And with Ben Johnson likely gone to Washington, you want to have as many weapons out there for the new offensive coordinator to play around with. And there it is, 32 picks. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. Like I said at the top, we're going to be starting with the off-season prediction videos. Pretty much going to run through the entire playoffs, and then once the Super Bowl happens, we'll get right back into mock draft season, because I do feel like this draft is probably the more important ones that have happened. I think free agency is a little weak this year, barring big cuts that could happen down the line, of course. But I'll see you guys next time with the next video.